2, 1.
Okay. All right. I think we're actually going to get started now. Can everyone hear me okay?
Hello,
Oh,
hello.
hi, Frau Joe, who just landed on the stage. It's awesome. She's great. That's all right. He said, I have seats up here too, so so everyone can hear me, and I just a little bit of sort of, I guess, info and housekeeping. We are recording this right now as well. Mal Burns and Pet Love Pet Shop are kindly recording this and streaming this. And if it was any on YouTube and like, so that's great too. So hopefully there won't be any technical glitches or anything we have to deal with, but we're Whiskey and I are on a Skype call as well as talking in world, but our in-world voice is down. So if there's any echoing that goes on, or my voice goes out, or her voice goes out, please feel free to shout from the audience in chat, so we know and we can get that sorted. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you to everyone for coming out here to Ekphrasis Live. For those of you who are like, what the hell is Ekphrasis? Well, it's this article that I write sporadically for Prim Perfect magazine. And as my time has gotten shorter, they've turned into these wonderful live talks that I do periodically, in which I'm absolutely honored to have some of the very best artists, I think, and me. Some of them are in the audience today who I've chatted with at previous birthdays, like Bot Girl and Scottius and PJ. And tonight I'm super excited to have the incredible Whiskey Monday here. I've been really, really excited when Whiskey agreed to come talk to me, because I'm a massive fan of her work. And clearly by the size of the turnout in the audience, don't worry, Whiskey, there's only 5 people.
Yeah, I'm pretending you guys aren't out there, so just be real quiet for me.
Yeah. So welcome, Whiskey Monday.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. So I think that I first stumbled upon your work, and I'm guessing it might have been a little bit late, but I think I first started noticing your images in the A is for Avatar project that you who's here tonight, works for it, and did Crap write all of the text?
He did most of it. Yeah, we had a few other people that collaborated with us and did several of the texts. But between Bot Girl and Crap, I call myself a writer, but I didn't do any of the text. I just did most of the photos.
So how did that project come about?
We can blame Bot Girl for half of what I do. I'm not a very good collaborator, but when she asks, I wanted to, because I adore her, and I adore her work, and everything that she does I think is super, super cool. So I started taking pictures mainly because of the work she was doing, and then when she brought up the A's for Avatar project, I thought it was really, really cool. And just really happy to be involved with it, because it was fun, but that had a really cool angle to it, I think.
Are people in the audience familiar with this project, by the way?
It's a really small thing. I'm guessing a lot of people are not. It was just I think it was a spur. And I don't have my finger on anybody's pulse to know who's aware of what. Oh yeah, cool. So
yeah,
I
think a lot of people. I think it's probably more well known than you think, because it's pretty damn funny. Period.
It is.
I was looking at it again earlier tonight because I was an avid follower of it. It was like 26 pictures long. Yeah, because it's like 26 letters in the alphabet.
Yeah, and we're actually going to go through it again. We have a whole nother set coming up of the whole alphabet again. I think we could probably go through the alphabet a few times without running out of material.
Oh, fantastic. So that was the first time I think I sort of, you really solidly came on my radar, because I thought your images in there were great, of course, alongside Bot Girl and the other collaborators too. But tell me more, because I don't know. Tell me more about how you came to Second Life, like how doing all that kind of newbie days.
Well, let's see. I originally came to Second Life in late 2006, and I was not a computer person nor a gamer at all. I came to attend a teacher seminar, and I was a teacher at the time. And I came to attend a seminar, and I had no idea what I was signing up for. And in fact, I was so naive, I signed up with my real first name as my avatar name, and came in my newbie, which at the time they were really, really horrific, starter avatars, to this really laggy, really difficult to maneuver. I knew nothing about how to use a keyboard to maneuver in a space. So I hated it. I came in and attended this seminar and left as soon as I could and hated everything about it. And I stayed away for several weeks until I got the flu. And this is around the time that this really heinous flu was going around. And I was in bed sick for a long time, and I had this really old, crappy laptop, and I was playing around on it and saw the Second Life viewer still on my desktop, and kind of idly clicked on it. And I'd say a lot of people can say that they had a similar experience where I just wandered around. I logged in because I was bored and had nothing else going on. I couldn't read because my eyes were hurting, and I started wandering around and was immediately hooked. I had no idea when I was there in that one little spot where they did the seminar. Had no idea how big and how amazing it was out there. And I learned everything totally on my own. I didn't interact with a lot of people in the beginning. I just kind of learned how to, and I still don't know how to fly. I say I learned how to, I don't know many things still.
You're like me. I can't fly, or I can't walk in a straight line either.
Oh, and I still have to have people remind me how to jump, and I get tangled up in trees, and my camera gets tangled in, and I'm the worst with my camera. My camera's never at the right angle, and I actually got one of those, I can't remember what it's called, but the mouse that makes you fly around. Crap can tell you what it's called, because he's the one that recommended it to me, and it's helped me tremendously, but anyway, so I came into Second Life while I was sick, and yeah, thanks, Spot Girl. It's a 3D Explorer mouse. Space Nav. It's the Space Nav. So I stayed, during that 3-week period that I was really, really ill, I rented a place and started decorating it, and I was totally hooked. I loved decorating my space, and so it was a really solitary thing for me because my graphics were really bad, and I couldn't wander around too much, and I couldn't go anywhere there was a crowd without crashing. So I learned pretty quickly that it was a very solitary place for me to be, which was okay. I liked that. I was good with that.
So, first of all, I find that all so extraordinary, and particularly the bit about how you can't move or can't fly and can't do all of these things. Looking at your images, that seems like a big fat lie. I know it's not, but it looks like it because you make the most amazing images. But anyway, we'll get to that part of it. So how did you first start getting involved with I guess creative practice then? Because you say you were a writer. You felt like you were a writer before you were an image maker.
I did take some pictures, and I crashed every time I did. With my old computer, I wasn't able to really take pictures. I had to have my graphics turned way down, and to chat in a place with more than 2 avatars, I had to zoom my camera into the floor. Anybody with crappy computers has done this themselves. You just kind of have to zoom into the floor and leave it there so that you can type it all. And so I spent the first 5 years of my Second Life like that, with my camera zoomed down. And so I didn't see much of Second Life. I didn't get to appreciate firsthand. But through people like Chestnut Rao's blog and New World Notes and some of the other places that were posting at the time some really amazing pictures, I was able to see what was out there. And so I kind of felt like a part of it, but I felt once removed from it because I wasn't immersed in it. Again, it was a little bit solitary to have your camera zoomed down, and while I could chat in the nearby chat window, that was very natural for me because it was typing and chatting, and that's cool. I could do that, but I very rarely saw Second Life. So when a friend of mine had an old gaming laptop sitting around that she didn't use anymore, she upgraded to a really, really nice tower, and so she sent me her gaming laptop. And my poor little laptop was already ready to die anyway. And so I was kind of staying away from Second Life very much. So she sent me her amazing gaming laptop, and I logged in for the first time on it and burst into tears. Strangely enough, I'm not somebody who does that very often, but I was standing on. I've always had a house in Second Life, but I've never seen my whole house rezzed. My house has always been I could go into one room and see everything in it rezzed, but I could never see my entire house rezzed. And people would come take pictures of my house because it looked really good and they liked it, and I would see their pictures and think, cool, my house looks great, but I never saw it. So that first time I logged in on that new computer, I was standing on the dock of my house, and I saw trees and grass and water, and turned around and saw my house. And I burst into tears. It was so cool to see the water, because I had always had water and trees disabled. They were completely off my graphics. And so I had never seen Second Life water live like that. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And I immediately started taking pictures. I wanted to show my friend what I saw. I wanted her to see how amazing this was, because, to me, it was the first time I had ever seen it. So I wanted to show everybody, look, guys, isn't this the coolest thing? Even though everyone else in Second Life had already been seeing it for years. So I started snapping pictures of that stupid sunset that I sat and looked at for an hour. I must have sat there for an hour just looking at the sunset.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because I actually had that experience recently, too. I'm good friends in real life with Isla Galak, the owner of Cheeky Pea, and I went over to her house and sat and logged in on her 21-inch Mac with this massive screen, and I actually went flying around Arrested Development first thing, and seeing it like that on a clear screen with no lag, I couldn't believe how fast things rezzed. I didn't know it was like that, and I don't think people who have always been on a good computer get it when you...
No, they don't, and they don't. Amazing. They don't wait for you. They don't understand. They go jaunting off to do something, and then you're bumping into walls because the walls don't res for you. So you're just stuck in a. It's a miserable experience. But I believed so much and loved so much in what I was seeing. The really limited sight distance that I saw. I kind of powered through it and stayed in Second Life, and I'm so glad that I did, because now what I see is. It's incredible. I mean, what goes on here is absolutely incredible. And I was a fan before, but now that I can actually see it and walk around in it, and I feel a part of it in a way that I never did before.
Well, and I just think it's extraordinary. I mean, I feel like I actually have to thank you, because PJ, who's here, he's always kind of my eyes. It's great having a guide who will show you around and actually point things out that I would normally miss. And looking at his images, I'm able to see things. But it's the same with you and Ziki, and I think all the really extraordinary virtual photographers here who take beautiful. It does. It keeps it going. It almost keeps you like hoping, like, one day I'll have a better computer and I too can see things.
Well, I'm incredibly blessed. I appreciate the gift of it. I've actually had 2 computers now, because I killed the laptop that my friend originally gave me. I killed it taking pictures. It was kind of on its last leg when it came to me, but after it died, I had a second laptop gifted to me, and so I'm incredibly blessed. And every single time that I log in, I say thank you, because I say it out loud. I say it to myself, because it's a gift. Being able to see what I see is an absolute gift, and I appreciate it every single minute.
Well, I think it's a testament to your talent, though, that people are giving them to you, because seeing what you see, I mean, that's why you're sitting here, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, because it isn't, I mean, you're not walking around taking, screenshots, as Hamlet likes to call it, which always, makes me crazy, me and Ziki, and, that they're photographs, but you're not even taking just, beautifully composed photographs. You're composing narratives, and you spend so much time doing them. So talk a little bit about, if you will, how you came to start doing that, because from obviously you're inspired by what you can see now, but then suddenly you're making these extraordinary images.
Well, again, it started with Bot Girl. I used to be, and I'm not so much these days, but I'm still there. I used to be very, very active on Twitter, and part of that was because of my family circumstances. My writing time was severely diminished. I wasn't able to write like I was used to writing. I could sit down and write for hours at a time. And my circumstances here at home made it so that I couldn't do that. And so Twitter became sort of an outlet for me to tell these tiny stories. And Bot Girl calls them micro storytelling. I can't remember the exact phrase that she uses, but there's these little micro stories, and they're like a single frame story almost in tweet form. And so I was able to still communicate, able to still stay in touch, able to still write, but it was an acceptable form for it to be a short form. And so
Right.
I really worked hard to craft tiny stories, if that makes any sense. In my tweets, head trauma theater. Yeah, head injury. I call it head injury theater because my mom had a head injury. She had. I know that people don't know my story, but I moved in with my family to care for 2 sick family members, and my mother had a severe head trauma, and it's completely changed who she is as a person and made her need care constantly. And so when she says crazy things, which she does constantly, which she did before, let's be honest. I call it head injury theater, and so there's just these little snippets, and it's a little slice of life kind of thing. But that's kind of where the photographs came from. Was another way of representing those little stories, those little snippets, because I wasn't able to write them. And what's happened is moving in with my family and being with my mother. Okay, any adult can tell you that's difficult, but in my family we were estranged to start with, and so it's especially difficult for me to be here, and it has brought up a lot of emotions that I have a really difficult time dealing with. And so I generally deal with difficult emotions by writing about them, but these are really difficult to write about. Some of the some of the things I've been going through are really difficult to write about for me. And so I found that putting those emotions into a visual form really worked for me. It really felt right because I was able to kind of tell a bit of my story without writing it, because the writing felt so raw. And the stories that I'm telling in the photographs feel one step removed almost. So it felt a little less exposed than the writing, because the writing felt so wide open.
This is one of those moments where I kind of hate doing this sitting here in an avatar, because I'm actually sitting here like shaking my head kind of in amazement, because your images they're just so potent. I mean, I'm going to be a fangirl with you.
Okay, but only if I get to do it back.
Okay. Well, okay. But they're just I just, every time I look at one of your images, I just think, God, how did she come up with that? How much time did it take? And I want you to answer those questions, but before you do, what I want to know first is, did you ever make any kind of images before? I mean, have you ever painted? Have you ever made photographs?
So, my mom's an artist, and my mom, when I say my mom's an artist, she's actually a working artist. She's somebody who has made her living all of my life as an artist. So I've been surrounded by art always. My mom has done every kind of media that you can, any medium you can imagine. She's done it and been very successful at it. And so I've been surrounded by art, but I've never consider myself a visual artist at all. I have a narrator in my head that's writing a book as I speak, and she's constantly, everything that I say, she turns into dialogue, and everything that I do, she turns into direction in a book. And so that's the way I've always operated, is in words and in text. And so all of my images even start that way. They start in words. They start in text. In my head, they start as a story, and part of it's my story. And so, no, I never did anything visual at all until that photograph that I took the first day that I logged in on that new computer. I was telling a story. I was telling my friend the story of my feelings that I felt seeing Second Life really for the first time after 5 years of being here. And so, no, I have never done that before. And I love it. I'm happy to do it. I'm thrilled. But if I stopped tomorrow, I would still have the writing. I will write forever and never stop that. But I think the photographs, the visual stories, they enrich the written story for me, because I'm able to work through some things while I'm working on the photos. And those things may never come to light. You may never know what I was thinking when I did the photo over your right shoulder. I may never explain that, but for me, I worked through some stuff while I was working on that and was able to better write about where I was stuck.
But we can see that. I mean, the result is there. I mean, it's just such a wonderful process, because, I mean, I teach art students, and they go through many years of art school, and they cannot do this. I mean, maybe it's the teaching that in some ways gets in the way. This is a very natural process. But what I'm so struck by is that you are making these images with no training, because it isn't just about the translation of text. I mean, obviously you're a fantastic writer, and I like that you can see how that underpins these images that you're making, but it's more than that. It's composition, it's color, it's writing, it's a lot of formal qualities that also, I mean, because you can take a narrative photograph and fine, but you have the formal aspects down, and that is truly what blows me away about you not having had any previous training and just kind of starting to make these images, because your composition is absolutely incredible. Yeah, Bot Girl just said, it takes the willingness to go into your pain and transcend it, plus the visual chops. And that's exactly it. I mean, thank you so much for being so brave to share this, but oh my God, you totally have the visual chops too.
Well, thank you. Maybe I should blame my mom for that. Maybe I should thank my mom for that, because I have been surrounded by art always, not just hers. But it's really funny. Until I started dealing with what I'm dealing with internally right now, living at home with my mom again, I didn't see visual stories. I didn't ever feel that. I never felt that. And I didn't feel it looking at other people's work either. I mean, I could see what somebody was trying to tell me, but I didn't feel that visceral reaction the way that I do now. And I don't know if something woke up inside of me when I was able to finally do it myself. But I never had that connection to a visual work that I feel now looking at mine and other people's work. Suddenly, I can see the stories in other people's work that I couldn't see before.
Well, I think I think your practice is a form of training. Well, right, you if you want to learn to do something, you teach it, right? You know that as a teacher.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and Chesta just said, I'd imagine growing up as a child of an artist is training. I also grew up in an artistic household. My grandmother was a painter. My uncle is an illustrator. And so I completely relate to what you're saying. But I've gone the opposite way, where I actually did go to art school and I did practice for a long time. And now somehow I've turned to writing. So I can understand how that kind of gets translated. And yet I think that my translation's nowhere near what you're doing with your work. It's just extraordinary. And you do a lot of collaboration with pose makers, don't you? You work with Chloe, right?
I do. I liked her before I started doing my work. I just liked her style. I liked the way her poses kind of speak on their own. You can jump into her pose and it already tells a little bit of a story. And there's other pose makers that are similar. I don't like fashion poses because they look so stiff. And so what I've always looked for is a pose that has emotion and movement in it. And Chloe definitely, Flutter Mamel is her name in world. She has amazing movement, and there's a poignancy to her poses that help me because I see it in my head. I talked about how it starts with words in my head, but then it does eventually become an image, and I need to make that image in world look like what I see in my head, and it becomes a compulsion. It's like I know what it's supposed to look like. I know what I want this to look like, but then there's all these limits. There's all these limitations from the medium. I mean, dealing with the limitations of Second Life, but trying to make it match what's in my head is almost insane. It makes me insane sometimes because I know exactly what it needs to look like. And so to find the pose and to find the props and to find the wind light and to find the camera angle and to find the little details that to me make it match up and align with what I'm seeing in my head, it can be really thrilling when it happens, but it can be really frustrating up to that point.
I can imagine. And so do you now work with her? Does she actually make specific poses for you when you need them?
Well, she did recently. She didn't before. I just used her poses and talked about her a lot because I adored her poses so much. But she was involved in the pose fair, and so we had been working on some poses that I wanted, and we decided to collaborate. And we did do a series. We did a series of poses that we talked about kind of behind the scenes, and then she actually, of course, created the poses, and I created the photographs that go with them.
And how do you go about finding all your props? And because that's the other thing too. I'm absolutely
I used to hate the marketplace. I used to be a fanatic. I would never shop on the marketplace. I would never go there. I would only go in world because I wanted to support people in world. I think creators are incredible. That the work that creators do here in world is insane. And so I would much rather see an item in world and much rather, I hate to say handle it because obviously you're not, but you know what I mean. I want to see it and know what it looks like before I buy it. But when you're looking for something really random and weird, like a cuff or a bird cage or, a skull or a nail, it's very difficult to find that in world with search. And so I get in my head what I want. I think about the props that I need, and I just go to search. I go to Marketplace and search. And I have to tell you, some of the things that you find on the Marketplace when you search for nail or cage or a bone are not exactly PG images. So I don't have a lot of time. My time is limited. My in-world time alone is limited, but my time to work on anything is limited these days. And so like right now, I've actually drugged my family so that I can have quiet time here today. It was all Jonestown up in here. I was like, everybody take your Kool-Aid. So when they wake up, you're going to hear it. But I don't have a lot of time to find the props that I want. And so I tend to scroll really quickly through the Marketplace. I have a million things that I purchased that I got and went, that's not what I wanted. Right. But really, that's the biggest challenge for me is finding the props that work for what I want to do. It's really, really difficult. No, I'm not joking, Bot Girl. I see what you just said. Totally not joking. It was Benadryl. It wasn't Kool-Aid. So nobody call. I don't want anybody to call social services on me, but my niece has bronchitis. No. My niece has bronchitis. And so she has cough syrup that does make her nappy, and so we let her go. Otherwise, you guys would be hearing all the lovely.
It sounds like you're just being a good caregiver.
I am. They needed a rest. Everyone needed a rest. So
that's right. It's just nap time.
They'll be refreshed when they wake up.
That's right, and you'll be there for them. It'll be just fine.
Right. Dinner's in the oven, and I'll take it out when we're done here, and nobody will be the wiser. So,
except for everyone who's watching this.
Shh! Don't tell anyone.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. So, okay, so you start making these images. You start telling these stories based on your writing, and you put them on your blog. You start sharing them on Flickr. Like what and people start paying attention. Like what happened for you? Anything that when people started?
That was really weird. I have to be honest. Putting them on my blog, I originally started with the images. The image kind of went with a piece of writing, and I felt like just putting images on my blog was kind of a cop-out. And so I started out trying to match an image to a certain piece of writing I was going to put on my blog. And then that really began to feel unorganic. It felt like it didn't flow right because they're very separate things. The images don't always go with the writing, and sometimes they're in place of. And so I found that it worked better for me to just do the images separate from working through the writing. And if they work together, great. And if they don't, I just started posting the pictures randomly on my blog with no explanation most of the time. I really did start it because of Bot Girl, because Bot Girl did some visual images of her own tweets and her own ideas and thoughts, her very short thoughts. She would put them into a visual image. And so I really started sharing them to compete with her because I wanted everybody to think I was better than Bot Girl. And so
Bot Girl says you won. There you go.
You're sitting in the audience, Bot Girl, now. But I don't like attention. I know that sounds really bizarre, and I don't want to be one of those people who's all false modesty and don't look at me. But really, the attention has been really difficult, and there have been times that I've pulled back and haven't posted. I have several photographs I've never posted, times when I've taken a break, because it's very intimidating to have eyeballs on you, and it's one thing to put your words out there, like to have a blog is one thing, because I don't see the people reading my blog, and aside from the occasional comment of support or even the occasional comment saying you're full of BS or whatever, it's like talking into a vacuum. But the comments and the likes and things on Flickr, which I've only been a member of Flickr for less than a year, it became really intimidating, and so it's been a strange process to get used to people talking about my work, or reading into it, or oh my gosh, buying my work. People actually buy my work, and I have to tell you, every time it happens, I want to reach out and thank that person. I think it would be really creepy to do it, so I don't. But I want to, like, I am every person that buys a piece of my work and say, oh my God, thank you so much. You have no idea, because I really love that piece too. And if you want to send me a picture of where you put it in your house, I would love that, because I want to know what they look like in your house. And because they're basically a little story of mine. They're buying a piece of me. It seems, I don't know. I'm just astounded every time somebody purchases one of my pieces in the world.
Well, that's what I was wondering about too, because you have only, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been really making these narrative photographs and showing them?
A little over a year. I joined in February of last year. So, and you know what? It may dry up tomorrow. I fully expect one day to log in and go, I don't have anything else to say. I have no more pictures to take. And that's okay. I'll have my nice little body of work and we can move on from there. But
well, you might find that you start doing it another way. You might find you start constructing images in your. I hate the term real life. Everyone knows that. I say it in every interview. I hate the term real life, but in your physical reality, you may start doing that. Oh yeah, that's right. Crap says that's when you're going to start composing symphonies. There you go. Next project.
Yeah. Okay. Symphonies of screams. That'll sound really great.
So yeah. Oh, Mal has just suggested the term organic self. That sounds a little bit crunchy granola, but yeah, okay. Yeah. No, I've talked to, I think in previous years, one of the topics that we've talked about, it might have been the year that Bot Girl interviewed, actually, we talked about the Roy Ascott's terms of verifiable reality and virtual reality, verifiable, vegetal, and then you end up with variable reality at the fusion of all of them. And I always like the term variable reality, actually, which your images, I think, are really... That
makes sense. I think I don't think of virtual reality as a different kind of reality. I think of it flows perfectly with my real world reality. I think of it as a universe that I can log into, but it's always there. And I don't think of it as separate, even though, it's funny because I watched your talk with Gracie yesterday, and I thought about how brilliantly she has merged her in-world persona with her physical persona, and how well that has worked out for her. And I have absolutely no desire to do that. Right. I like the distance, the little kind of a wall that having an avatar name gives me. I want to keep that. And so it's very, very odd. It's odd to have the real me because I feel like I'm sitting on the couch beside you. I am literally immersed in what I'm doing right now, and that's how I feel with my work. That's how I feel with my home. That's how I feel with my friends in the world. They don't feel separate from my physical world. They feel a part of it, and yet I keep that wall. So it's very odd. And listening to Gracie was very inspiring, but she's very, very. Her situation is so different. I don't have that desire to do that.
Well, no, and obviously there's different camps about this, and to me, there's no right or wrong. I know that in the last, it was about a year or so ago, that Bettina Tizzi was coming out saying how all artists who are working in virtual worlds needed to be signing with their real life names, that if they weren't trying to make their work legitimate and all this kind of stuff. And I understand what her point was, and she's, for me, someone I've only met once, she kind of left right as I was coming in SL, and I always think that I'm not filling her shoes in any way, but following in her footsteps in what I do here. So I think she's great, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's many, many ways to do this. And whereas you've got people like Gracie who are doing augmented reality and being kind of open about it. Bot Girl's been pretty open about the various personalities and personas. Other artists I'm going to talk to on Thursday, Ian Upton, he works under his name. But then, of course, you have other people who are completely personas, like Bruno, and other artists I know, too, who are in very similar situations that you've just kind of bravely talked about. I can think of a few other artists, friends of mine, who have really intense personal situations that most people don't know about, that they deal with, whether it's caring for sick family or disabilities or anything like that. And this is a space where they can just get away from that and
Right.
have their own. And so then why would you do that? You wouldn't do that, because it's actually is the creative drive to be here for those. So, I mean, I think that, but it's interesting to get some insight into that. And it's interesting what you said about this kind of anxiety. Maybe anxiety is too strong a word, but with people are looking at your work, because we're looking at them as just these extraordinary stories that you're telling, but you're actually laying yourself bare in a way. And that must be kind of disconcerting, I would think, at times. Even though we don't know that,
Yeah, it is. And it's the same with writing. I feel the same with writing, because my writing is personal. I don't write fiction. And so it is, it's a bit, I've likened it to, skinning yourself with a butter knife and jumping into a pool of alcohol, because you feel completely laid bare, and it's sometimes very painful. And it seems almost silly to talk about photographs that you take in a virtual world as being somehow painful and being somehow exposing your soul to the world, but that's really what it is. And I'm unabashed about that. It's what I'm doing. And even if, I think sometimes my work can be kind of obscure and obtuse, and might not tell the same story that I had in mind, which is okay. I don't mind that, but I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, it is. It's hard. Okay. It's this double-edged sword. When you create something, whether it's writing or visual, you want people to see it. You want people to read it and see it. And yet then when they do, it's this whole, look at me, don't look at me. Isn't this cool? No, wait, don't talk about it. This weird dichotomy that I have going on. And it must drive people insane. They must think I'm completely bonkers, because it's like, I put a blog out there. I want you to read it, but please don't comment, and please don't tell me you read it, and please don't ask me about it. And I almost feel I get that way with my photographs too. It's like, yeah, I took that, and yes, I put it on Flickr, but I don't want to hear your interpretation of it, and I really don't care. It's bizarre. It's very strange.
Well, so actually, you just have opened up another, I think, interesting thing to ask you about, because, and I hope I don't lose my train of thought in that. What was I going to say? Oh my God, I just blanked. No, in the sort of look at me and don't look at me. The question was, how important? God, here's like total interviewer fail right now. See, you were worried about you. You should have been worried about me. No, how important is it that people understand what you're doing exactly, or what the art is? Because, okay, there's obviously this, well, maybe not so obviously, but there's a whole school of critical thought out there that says, actually, Whiskey Monday, you as the artist, we don't care what it is that you were trying to say, what it is that you were trying to do, your work. We gauge the success of your work on whether or not we as a viewer and audience can come up to it and relate to it and find a narrative. And it doesn't matter if the narrative is yours or not, but we're finding it. And if that school of thought were true, I don't necessarily personally subscribe to it. I do sometimes. I think your work is hugely successful because you can walk up to it. You can find, that's why people respond to it. They see images, they have these emotional reactions to them, they relate to them, and it doesn't matter if we're understanding what it is you did or not. But as an artist, how important is it to you that people are understanding? Because I remember I will let you answer this question in a second, but I remember on Plurk when you were doing an exhibition and you were like, oh my God, I have to write an artist statement about this. I'm trying to explain this work to people. How much should I explain? And I was like, don't.
Yeah.
I was chiming in, kind of being
and see, that's part of it. I don't want to tell you what to see. And I find it really odd that I really don't care what people see when they look at my photographs. It's not important to me that they understand exactly what I was trying to say, but it is important to me that they're moved by it. There are emotions that there's a difference between evoking an emotion. I want to evoke an emotion, but it needs to be yours. It needs to be your sincere reaction and not my narrative telling you what to see. However, when it comes to my writing, I feel very strongly that I want to be understood. I want my story to be quite plain, and I want what I write. I don't know why it's different, but it is. I really feel like I want my writing to be understood. But if my pieces, my photographs, my pictures, whatever you want to call them, are not understood in that same way, if the narrative isn't the exact same as what I'm saying, that's okay with me. I don't mind that. But I do feel that.
Yeah, my guess, infographic or comic versus art, says Bot And my guess is that, when you're talking art, we think of it in a more abstract, even though you're not dealing with abstract art, you're dealing with abstract concepts because it's an image versus words being literal. So I think there's a direct relationship there between something that's literal as something that we would want to be understood, versus an image, has this kind of abstract quality too. So Freewee's giving us a Frank Zappa quote: "Writing about music is like dancing about architecture." And that applies to art too. That's lovely. I did see a lot of good comments going there earlier. I'm sorry I didn't want to jump in on Whiskey to repeat, but there's a lot of fun chat going on in the audience.
Oh, too. I'm missing it. Okay, I'm not pulling up, and you can't make me because
no, it's fine. It's just irreverent comments. Crap's given me something to res if we need a decoy, Whiskey. Should I do this?
I don't know. Do you trust Crap? Are you kidding me?
No. But I'll do it at the end. I'll hold on to it for the end.
Okay.
Just res that if we need a fake Whiskey.
Okay.
So, okay. So, how many gallery exhibitions have you had now?
I don't know. 5, maybe 5.
And you've been doing this for just over a year, and you've got 5 gallery images. Exhibitions. So you started making these images for yourself, and now you're being commissioned to do gallery shows. For example, you were naked in my house.
I did a series. I had somebody call me out for not being erotic enough, which I thought was quite comical. Like, dude, if you don't see the eroticism in my work, I'm sorry.
No. There's a lot of people in Second Life who I don't fully understand the word erotic. If you've been to some of these erotic art exhibitions,
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and this was my version of erotic, and I find it highly arousing. So, being naked in someone else's house, and it's actually funny because the erotic part of that was the doing of the work, was the erotic part of that, and the images are completely a byproduct of it, because I have to be honest, and I'm being really frank here because I'm pretending there's nobody else listening. It's really erotic to walk around someone else's home naked, and it doesn't matter that it's a virtual home. I don't care. It's still a very personal space, and to walk through somebody's home in the nude is hugely erotic. So I hope that I captured at least a tiny bit of that. But yeah, that's at ACES Gallery right now. I think that goes on for a couple of weeks, but that little series that I did is at ACES Gallery. And thank you, Rowan, for letting me come be naked in your light. I appreciate that.
Did you see PJ said he hasn't yet washed the dining table? He won't let me wash the table.
I did. I jumped naked on Rowan's dining room table. Her butt prints. There's butt prints on the windows.
Are on the china. So did you find that? Obviously, you found it an interesting project to do that, and I was reading your blog post about that too. About the sort of, I found it really interesting. You're talking about the vulnerability that you felt walking around other people's houses being nude as well.
Well, part of my avatar, and again, I'll refer back to Gracie because I found her talk so fascinating, because we are so opposite, is that I wanted my avatar to look as much like me as possible, and she is an extension of me. I hear people talk about their avatar in my world, she's first person. Whiskey is me, and so I don't think of her as her, and I'm saying her just for the sake of the audience, but I think of that as that's me sitting there, and so I wanted her to look as much as possible like me in every way. She dresses like me. Her hair looks just like mine, except hers is much prettier right now. And her boobs are much perkier than mine these days. But for the most part, I wanted her to look as much like me as possible, because I then connect with the world so much better that way. I've been a bunny, and I've been a chinchilla, and I've been a dark-skinned avatar once, to try to step outside of that. And I was so uncomfortable, and I feel really comfortable in my skin as Whiskey. And so I did. I felt vulnerable. It was really interesting to feel that, because I sometimes feel that with my writing. I often feel it with my photographs, but it's a very personal vulnerability. I don't feel It's hard to explain. But yeah, I did. I felt really vulnerable walking naked around your house. It was interesting.
You also gave a really nice compliment, by the way. I wanted to thank you when you said that you could feel us in the house when we weren't there. It seemed.
And I can say that about almost everyone's home that I visited. It's funny because, you think of virtual spaces as just, I don't know what people might think of them, but I was surprised to discover how personal everyone's space was, because mine is very personal. My space is very me, and you could come into my home and know it was mine. And so going into other people's homes, you can feel the sense of them, the artwork that they put on the walls, or the the menus in their furniture, or whatever you can find just snooping around. But you can definitely see the essence of the person who built that space.
Hey, I got that furniture as a gift.
From PJ, maybe?
No, from working for Prim Perfect magazine. It's the perks. Not from me. See, PJ says not from me. No, but it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about how you want to hear people's reactions to your work, because actually when you're looking for houses, I was like, I want to see what Whiskey thinks of my house, because I'm really proud of what we've done. We like decorating. It's fun. We have similar sensibility. You said that about your roomie too, that you have similar sensibilities in how you decorate. So I kind of wanted part of it was definitely vain. I'm like, I want to see what Whiskey thinks of the house. Because it's an expression of creativity.
There were people that were really offended that their work their house didn't make it into the show. I was only given 5 spots in the show at Ace's Gallery, and I took at least a dozen, but I think it was probably closer to 16 or 17 images. And I've been busy with the build at here at the Second Life celebration, at the birthday celebration, and so I haven't had time to work on those others. I only got 5 ready, but I could have a whole exhibit, and people were really crushed that their house didn't make it in. So, and actually, hey, I see my roommate is actually out. I see her in the audience now. I just saw her pop up on my screen. Hi, Mark. Hello. Yay, she made it.
Yay. So then what I kind of wanted to originally ask you about doing that was you were given a remit finally as an exhibition, at least in saying that it was erotic, but now people are approaching you with kind of remits about what they want you to make. How do you feel comfortable with that? Because it's sort of stepping out of your...
I actually don't, and I decided that after the ACES thing that if I'm not inspired to do it, and I hate to say organically because that term is used, it's way overused, but it's the truth. If it doesn't come from inside of me in some way, and if it's not inspired by a sincere desire to make it, to show it, to create it, then I'm not going to waste my time with it. My time in world is so precious, and so it's not near enough. And so no, I need to make work that is speaking not only for me, but to me. And while, don't get me wrong, I love that series, and I definitely want to finish the rest of them, and I'm going to show it somewhere someday. But that series did teach me that doing work that has that kind of purpose, and also, I'll be honest, building the build for the Single Frame Stories project here at the birthday celebration taught me that as well. I'm not very good with deadlines. I'm not very good with edicts. I'm not very good with people saying, this is what we think you should do, this is what you need to be working on, because my heart isn't then in it, because the pictures on the wall behind you are literally pieces of my heart. And so they're worth the time to me. They're worth the stress of finding the props and the stress of finding the right angle and all of those things that make it difficult to photograph in Second Life. I can do it with my heart. And the Single Frame Stories project is a part of my heart too, but it's a very different thing. But no, I don't think I'll be accepting any more of that type of thing where somebody says, I have this space, but this is the kind of thing we do, and you would need to do this kind of work. Unless it's something that works with what I already do, I don't think that's up my alley right now.
Yeah. Now I'm already thinking about what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to be yourself.
I actually had a couple of people just yesterday, 2 different people say, I have this space, here's what we do with it, would you be interested in using it? And really, the idea of using a space, I don't work in 3D. My work is 2D. As soon as I finish with the set, I delete it. It's gone. You'll never see this stuff again. And I like that. I like the impermanence of it, and then the permanence of the actual photograph. I really dig that. But then people are offering me these 3D spaces, and I'm like, well, that could actually be kind of cool. I could set up a photographic space for other people to come in and take their own photographs and translate what I've done in their own way. But I'm just not sure I'm there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, you've only been doing this over a year, and you're making extraordinary images. Having just closed Arrested Development, which was such an amazing project to work on, it was important to me. And I feel so fortunate to work with who I did. And that was, I had an idea, and then an artist ran with it, and then I brought in the people who I thought whose work would really suit the space. But it was important to me to bring in virtual photographer. So PJ was there, and thanks, yay. PJ was there, Stephen Venkman, and Ziki Questy. And what I loved, I was so kind of proud of all three of them, because all three of them took their 2D work and translated into the way they scripted it. They started making it do things at the same time that all of the sculptural people, like Scottius, who was there, and Rose, were finding ways to make their work fit. And they all worked so hard to do it. But it's definitely hard. And it was I didn't want them to feel like they were limited in what they could do. At the same time, I wanted it to be this kind of group, installation space. And I think that's hugely challenging for a curator, but I also think curators should listen, because even though I did that kind of massive exhibit and it was a huge thing, I think curators need to just let artists do their thing, quite frankly. I'm not a fan of galleries that are like, I'm doing this, Right. I think that you find someone whose work you love and you're inspired by and you think it's great, and you show it. That's the deal, personally. Yeah. Not to get on my own rant.
Actually, it's funny, because with the Single Frame Stories project, we actually gave a prompt and asked people to work with that prompt. And so I do think there is something to be said for a theme. Yes. I don't mind that, because it can be inspiring, and you can do your own work within the constraints of the theme. But the constraints have to be really, really small. They can't be too constraining, or it just becomes a nag in your head.
People can really work with it, and
yeah. And I'm not trying to make a living as an artist. I get tickled. Don't get me wrong. I am so happy every time I sell a piece, and every single penny that I make goes toward buying more props and more wacky things to use in my photographs. But I'm really creating this stuff for me as an outlet, as a type of therapy. And so sometimes the theme can really just make me go, bah, whatever. But sometimes it can make me really work towards something. I can go, I really need to work on this. That brought up an interesting feeling or an idea or a memory, and then I can go from there. And my shot may not even remotely look like the theme, but in my world it worked,
Yeah. And just a few comments from the audience. Crap says, or you can ignore the prompt and just say, I'm an artist.
I'm an artist. I put a bird on it, and so it's art.
Put a bird on it.
Yes, there's a bird on it, and it's art.
L. Core Blank says, bring your voice to the project. Freewee says, a theme can be sufficiently vague as to inspire the broadest possible interpretation. I definitely want to say that, because Freewee is one of the great curators in Second Life, in my opinion.
And I agree with Freewee, because that's what we try to do at the Single Frame Stories project, is to make the prompt, it's just a single word. I pick the prompts, and I do it completely random. Sometimes I just sit where I'm typing up the week's blog post, and I just pick a story. Actually, once I asked Marks to help me because I couldn't think of one. But yeah, I want to make that word just a single word, and it has such a broad interpretation. It can be anything that you, hey there, how you doing? It can be anything that you want it to be, and it works. So yeah, you want to sit with me, big boy. Hey there.
That's right. You can sit on the other love seat. There's space. I actually want to say something about this set, and we probably need to. Actually, we're sort of hitting the end of our hour spot, so we need to wrap up. So here's what I know. I told you, it's just we're going to be rambling, and it's fine. And so here's what people in the audience, if you have questions for Whiskey, please start throwing them into chat. I'll repeat them to her shortly. There's still a million things I'd love to talk about. I definitely want to talk more about your process and get into your get into your head. But one thing I want to say is because I adore Whiskey's images so much, it sounds like I was a big fat cheat. I kind of said to her last night, "Hey, do you want to do the set?" Because I really wanted to sit in one of his
let's be honest.
spaces.
I made fun of her morning show kitchen set that she used. Gracie talked yesterday. I was like,
standing here like, I don't know what to do.
Me in the morning show kitchen. I refuse, and so I made fun of it. So
No,
she basically
I
said,
totally
"Fine,
agree.
then set something up yourself."
No, I didn't. But it is true. Yesterday I kind of looked at this blank space and I was in a rush and I was like, I don't want to just put down a couple chairs, so I rezzed my kitchen. Gracie and I had a chat in the kitchen, but then
like AM Second Life. Good morning.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it's too bad we should have been baking cake and chopping veg or something.
I know. And Gracie's avatar looked so out of place in that setting. It was great. It was actually funny. Yeah.
I kind of wanted it to be a little bit surreal, but anyway, whatever. It was my kitchen. I've never, by the way, had done an interview in my kitchen before, but it gave me an idea that I might start doing these in my house. I might start having Sunday at-home salons.
Hey,
and
I
invite
like it.
people over.
And you know what's funny? I complained and said I wasn't going to be interviewed in a kitchen, but then I set out a living room. So hey,
that's right. Yeah, because no one ever sits on sofas and interviews people.
No, gosh.
But actually, no, this is a space that's actually kind of out of one of your photographs. And then we didn't wear the multicolored suit, but PJ says, "Whiskey, you can be interviewed on the dining table."
Okay, that's perfect.
Yay.
I shall clothed this time. I'm sorry. I'll
yeah, sorry. It's going to be, well, we'll see. Those Sunday at home salons, I don't know, they can get crazy. But okay, getting back to the set, I did ask Whiskey to put out some of her work, and she's put out some of her favorite images here. So do you maybe want to just pick a couple of them and tell us, why these images are amongst the favorite ones that you've made?
Sure. Actually, I think probably one of my all-time favorite, and this, if I could have one hanging, I don't have any of my work hanging on my wall in the real world, but if I did, and I don't think you can't see the names of these. It's called Never Alone, and it's actually the one on the right-hand wall as you're facing it, and it has all the hands, and I'm sitting inside a bunch of hands, and this was one of the first photographs that I did, and you know what, Gideon, I know this is one of your favorites because you told me that, and I thought of that when you were here. This is one of my favorites too, and part of it is that it's ambiguous. These hands can either be supporting or they can be picking apart me, the figure inside. And I'll be honest, I had in mind, and I normally wouldn't say this, but I did have in mind picking me apart, that this was how I felt at the time. I felt like I was constantly being grabbed, constantly being carried where I didn't want to be, that I was completely out of control. And that's kind of how this picture came about. And this photograph was really, really difficult to do. It took me weeks to set this up. And I've always been really lucky to have people give me space to work and prims. I have to say Crap Mariner has always been a big supporter, and he's always given me space in the Five Islands where I've always got enough prims to res whatever scene I'm working on. And that's really important as an artist because you don't want to have to take down a set. You want to have time to work on it. And this took me weeks to put together because the fingers, trying to get the hands right and the fingers intertwined. These are actually meshed hands that I resed and enlarged. And so there's about $1,200 worth, 1,200 prims worth of fingers and hands there.
Wow.
And to leave that set up for a long time is very prim heavy. But I love that one, and I actually might reshoot it because I was on a subpar computer when I shot that, and also dealing with the tiling bug that was, in Second Life photography, there's always been this tiling bug that just recently was taken care of. And I may reshoot that because I do love that. But yeah, that's definitely way up there on my list. And I know we're going over. I feel really bad. I just looked at the clock.
It's okay. We got a little bit of a late start, and nobody's come along to complain. So I think we're okay.
Okay. And honestly, my other favorite is opposite that one. It's the one where I'm actually climbing into the fountain. It's escapism, rain on the roof, and instant coffee, which is it's a Hunter Thompson quote. And it's really funny because nobody's ever asked me what this means. No one's ever asked me what the quote meant. But I was actually missing doing drugs when I I know how weird that is. I was actually really missing the escapism of drugs, and those were. I did drugs in my youth. I don't any longer. I'm not a recovering drug addict or anything. But there are times when
it was the early '90s, right?
Yeah, no, I wish. No, it was actually closer to the '80s. I'm in my 40s. I'm ancient. But
that's not ancient.
This is what this photograph is kind of what it feels to escape in that way for me. It's like climbing into something incredible. I've always been a water person. I grew up in California. And I've always been really connected to water. And so I always felt when I was on drugs, this is terrible. I really probably shouldn't have gone here. But anyway, that's kind of where that
You're an artist now. It's okay.
So, yeah, no, I don't have to explain myself. I can be weird. But yeah, that photograph is kind of how it feels to escape where you are and yet still be where you are. That's kind of what this is about. It's about I've escaped the room that I'm in, and yet I didn't really even leave the room that I'm in, and that's kind of what drugs were for me. And I don't get that pleasure anymore. So I think Second Life kind of fulfills that for me. I'm able to escape a little bit where I am, and yet still stay where I am, if that makes any sense at all.
It does. And I think that's a brilliant kind of thing to wrap up on. I'm going to ask you the final question that I'm going to ask everybody all week. Because it's Second Life, looking forward, looking back. Looking back over your Second Life, what's the one thing, the one place or experience that you've had here that's now gone that you wish were still around? Like someplace you saw or an art exhibit?
That's easy. I wish I had my original avatar's inventory. Whiskey is not my original avatar. She's I created her as an alt, and just before I left Second Life for about a year, and I lived in Inworlds, and just before I left, I created a new avatar, thinking maybe a new avatar would kind of spice things up for me, and Whiskey was born. My original avatar is from 2006, and I committed avicide when I left. I never expected to come back to Second Life, and so I actually had her deleted. And her inventory was huge and wonderful, and had things from as early on as 2006, and especially now with Christine's amazing Now and Then project with the avatar. I didn't have a lot of my my really early stuff because I killed that avatar, and so I wish I had her back. I wish I had her. Her inventory, at least. I really don't care about her name or her pedigree or any of that stuff that comes with an avatar. I'm happy with Whiskey, and I like her name, and I like who she is. But I wish I had that inventory back. I really miss it all the time.
Wow, interesting. So there's the lesson: don't delete your avatar.
Don't delete it. Don't delete it. Yeah, don't burn
stick it away.
I'm famous for burning bridges. I'm telling you, I have lit so many fires burning bridges. It's a thing, I guess.
Are there any questions out there for Whiskey? Anyone? You're just so enthralled. You can purchase her work. You can actually. Some people have. I think Chestnut said she has it on her real wall.
Yeah. Actually, I did. I crossed over, and you can get some of my work at Fine Art America, and my website is whiskeymonday.com, and you can get a link there. But I do have some of my. Some of the works they were able to translate to real life, which they were really difficult to get over there because they had to be shot in really, really huge high-res images, and then they had to be really cleaned up. So I don't have a ton, but I do have some stuff there.
Yeah, I want to get some, definitely. So you can actually have these works on you can have them on your virtual wall, and you can have them on your physical wall. So, yes. Thank you so much for being here. I have a million other questions, but yeah.
I have to say, this was way more painless than I expected. I have been nervous all day, and this was way more fun than it would be. So thank you so much. You are so wonderful, Rowan. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm all right.
You're a good egg.
I like doing it. It's just fun. I feel like, yay, I get to talk to my favorite artist. Yay. Thank you to everyone for coming. This was a fantastic turnout. And
there's people here. Okay, I'm going to cancel.
You can see who's here now.
Hey,
and
guys.
Let me just do a shameless plug for the other people who are coming this week, if I can. Tomorrow, so I'm here the rest of the week at 3 p.m. Tomorrow is Draxter Despress. I guess they'll tell me how to pronounce that. Despress. Drax is here. Yeah, Dupree, that's probably right, actually. Anyway, Drax is here tomorrow night, so we're going to talk about all his amazing stuff. My friend Ian Upton will be here on Thursday. We'll talk about his augmented reality exhibits that he's done, which I've seen both in the real world and the virtual, which was super fun. So we'll talk about augmented reality. Friday, Chic Aeon. And Saturday, dun dun dun, Bruno will be here. In text, not in voice. But come down to chat with Bryn. So yeah, I hope I do see you guys back down here this week. It's really, really great.
Thank you all so much for coming. I'm waving at you. I know you can't see me, but in real life, I'm like waving at you all because you all look so smart out there. So hi, thank you. Yay.
Yay. Thanks.
Thanks, Rowan.
Thank you.
I have to go wake my family up.
Oh yeah, you have to go. Do you have to give them drugs to wake them up? Do you have to give them uppers to wake them up?
Yeah. I've got a pot of coffee brewing, so